Hello everyone. Wanted to go ahead and break down that question of differentiated instruction. I use it often, that is the name it goes by, but I wanted to break down what it is. Differentiated instruction can be broken into 4 categories. You have content, process, products, and learning environment. So I want to go ahead and briefly talk about each of those, and then we're going to go ahead and spend some time each video talking about them separately. Okay, so the first one I want to talk about is content. So you want to know in your classroom or in your home what the content is that you are required to teach your students or your child. So, you need to know obviously their grade level, but what grade level are they working at? You need to look at the standards or the content so objectives. Basically, what are you required to teach them? What are they supposed to end up being able to provide at the end of the lesson, basically? When you are thinking about these things with content, you also want to think about their learning style. Do they learn better visually? Are they a more auditory learner? Do they like to touch more? Do they like to read and write? Those are all aspects that you need to think about when you are talking about content and teaching your students and being, allowing them, giving everything they need, provide them in order for them to be successful. So that is content. Then we move on to process. So what you need to think about here is you take your objective and your goal of what you want to teach them, but then you need to think about, okay, how do I teach them? Do I need to tier my instruction? So like if they're a 3rd grade level, so if they are a 3rd grade level, maybe they're a 3rd grader, but they're working at a 1st grade level, then you would take that same objective or standard and you would kind of tier it or tweak it as far as your expectation of them for what they're going to use as their final product. So if they're a 3rd grader, but they're not working at 3rd grade level, you need to tier it so that it is 1st grade level. So the objective is the same, but how they go about it, that final product, will be 1st grade or whatever level it is that they are. The other thing you need to think about is when you are teaching them, do you give them breaks? Do they need specific breaks? So if you're in the classroom, we have specific designated times that we teach certain subjects. If you are hybrid, same thing goes. Most of those classes are scheduled. If you are home, a lot of times you have block times as well. So as you're planning, so be thinking about how often you are giving those students breaks as they need it. Okay, so that is something that you need to think about when it comes to process also. Then as we move into products, if we're keeping along the same lines of that same scenario where you have a 3rd grader working at a 1st grade level, and it is a specific objective, like you're going to write a 5-paragraph essay, or maybe you need to do a personal narrative, let's say, something like that. So an example of product and differentiating that would be like, okay, so maybe for my visual learner or my lower learner, you're going to go ahead and draw a picture, illustrate the story, okay, that personal narrative. If you are my read-write thinker and maybe you are more advanced and you can write and you can spell for the most part, or maybe that's just how you tick best, then you're going to go ahead and rewrite. So they would write out their story. Then you might have the auditory learner, okay, depending on their level as well, but maybe that's how they learn, where they just want to share their narrative orally out loud, okay? And then you might have that hands-on learner where they want to go ahead and just kind of build out the story. So maybe they're acting it out, okay? So those are all things to think about when you're talking about product. You have the same objective, but how you get there, the process and how you get there, is what needs to change when we are differentiating, so that the final product is something that the students can do at their level, they can feel successful, and you're still working on that same objective, okay? And then finally, learning environment. Is your home classroom setup applicable for those students? For your visual learners, okay? Okay, so you're visual learners. So do you have posters around the room or visuals that they can look to for guidance on how to work on whatever it is they're working? Could be even for behaviors. For the hands-on kinesthetic learners, do you have manipulatives, things that they can touch and move while they're learning? For the oral or the auditory learner, can they get on the computer and listen with headphones or things like that? For the read write thinker, do you have as much writing tools as possible for them in your classroom? So these are just different things to think about when differentiating instruction. And so I wanted to break those down, and we'll go deeper into each of those real soon. So reach out if you have any questions, DM me for anything that you'd like, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye. And the one last thing that I want to add to that is when you are differentiating, we want an ongoing assessment. So we want to be assessing our students regularly. And that doesn't mean necessarily test. That just could mean informal assessment, just kind of watching how they're doing on their work, through activities. We need that ongoing assessment because some students' levels change, as we know. But the other thing is we want to do like an inventory or a checklist or a little quiz. Like we need to find out what is it that our students need to learn best. Now, if they're your own children, you have an idea, but we really need to own in on that and see where it is that they really thrive in order for us to be really successful with that. So last tidbit, we'll see you guys soon.